Today I'm going to be talking about kind of opening the social graph and the history of Interop and kind of the present, the past, and the future. So I don't know if I'm supposed to wait for translators, but kind of about me, I'm the creator of LiveJournal, which is a blogging and social networking site and a system for has privacy controls on everything, and it's a syndicator of RSS and Atom, and it publishes and consumes RSS and Atom, and has open and documented APIs. I also was responsible for OpenID, which is slowly picking up popularity lately, and it's a system for distributed identity on the internet that has no single point of failure. It's not a centralized system. No company is in charge of it. And I've also written lots of software like Memcached and a distributed file system, Mocha LFS, and some load balancers and an XMPP server. So, am I supposed to wait for translations or no? Okay. Yeah, English. Okay, so basically these are the things that excite me. Basically Interop and systems that work all together, open protocols, social networking in general. So basically the things I want to talk today about are the social graph, basically how everybody is connected to each other. Social applications, basically any useful thing that then uses the social graph. And interoperability between systems. So right now, there's a lot of social networking sites, but they don't work together. So I want to talk about how we can get to the point where they work together well. And then things like privacy and personas and private identifiers and how this works in a decentralized system. And where does the data live and kind of the ideal future and how we get there. So as far as the social graph, this is basically how everyone is connected to each other and the relations among them. And unlike a lot of websites that model the social graph as an undirected graph, really in reality, we have an undirected graph where people think different things about each other. Like maybe Tom is really interested in Alice, but Alice really finds Tom annoying. In reality, people think different things about each other. Not everybody is just friends. I'm not friends with you and you're friends with me. Sometimes we hate each other, we like each other, and it's always different. So I'm going to talk, assuming that, let's just assume from here on out that when I say the social graph, I'm talking about a directed graph. And recently, Tim Berners-Lee, who kind of coined the phrase the World Wide Web, he came up with this term, the gigantic global graph, or the GGG, just kind of like www or www. So that's a term that's been getting popular lately. As far as social applications go, a lot of these social networking sites like Facebook and stuff have these kind of, they're kind of little fun or silly toys where you can poke each other or throw sheep at each other or something where it's not incredibly useful yet, but it's a good example of a social application. It's something that you can do between friends. You pick a friend and you do something with them. So I haven't been so excited about a lot of these, but there was one website that was interesting to me lately, which was the site Doppler.com, which is a site that lets you, you tell it what cities you're going to be in and what flights and travels, and it tells you which cities your friends will be visiting at that time. But for it to be able to do this, it needs to know who your friends are, and your friends have to also be using the site, which meant I had to once again tell it all my friends. So I also want to talk about privacy really quickly and personas. People use websites in different ways. You're not always acting like yourself. Sometimes you work like your work persona, or sometimes you work like your public internet persona where you're very careful about what you say. And sometimes you have a very personal journal, or you have a very personal account where you show maybe drunken college photos of you half naked and drunk and falling off things. Things you don't want to show maybe your family or your coworkers at a bank. So people use every website with a very different kind of personality or side of themselves. So if you want to synchronize your accounts or synchronize your friends between these different websites, you only want to synchronize ones that are the same, only within the same persona. So, and also, if if your friend knows one of your accounts on one of your websites, maybe you shouldn't reveal that you have another persona. Maybe it's okay from your public internet persona for them to learn about your work persona, but it's not okay if someone only knows your work persona to discover that you're public internet persona. So everyone has different kind of opinions of how personas should be discovered. So as far as privacy and identifiers, things can be private as far as your contacts for different reasons. One of the most obvious ones is the identifiers themselves are actually contact information. So maybe an identifier is an email address. So if you say, like, if I just say my friend is Brad, there's nothing you can do so annoying with that. You can't kind of email me or spam me or call me in the middle of the night on my mobile phone. But if I say my friends are, and here's my address book, or here's all my phone numbers from my phone, now you can do something annoying with that. So if you were to publish on the internet a list of all your friends, and that list of all your friends was their mobile phone numbers, you wouldn't have very many friends for very long. So the other way that things can be private is if it's like the example I have here is like your mistress or something. Maybe you don't publish your mistress's phone number or her email address, but the very fact that you have a mistress and you have that relationship on like the same social networking site is bad for you to publicly reveal. So there's a lot of different issues with privacy, with identifiers and relationships. So for most of this talk, I'm going to be focusing on public information only, not on these issues of privacy. So this is kind of my personal experience with social networking sites. Initially, I only used LiveJournal, and because I made it, and all my friends were there, and it was really simple, and I didn't have to worry. But then all these other social networking sites got popular. There was Friendster, and then there was MySpace, and then Facebook, and I don't really remember which order they came in, but there's just so many social networking sites now. I don't know where to add my friends. Are they there or there? In reality, my friends are now all over the place on different social networking sites, and I don't know which one to use. So the problems with all this is there's a lot. Let's switch to some English here. Yeah. Basically, users are frustrated, and people are sick of, there's all these little islands of friends, and you don't know, you can't like add somebody as a friend on a different island, and you can't throw a sheep from one island to another island, and unless they're living on the same island as you, you can't really interact with them. And it's also kind of hard to create social applications because you either have to make your entirely own system on your own servers, and you have to where did you get the social graph from? Do you have to ask users again? Tell me who your friends are, invite them or friend them, and it's really annoying. Or you could use a platform. Maybe you use Facebook or you use MySpace's platform. But you still have to choose which one. So basically, users are frustrated of joining all these new sites and redefining all their friends every time. And they're also concerned about privacy, and they're managing all their different personas. And developers are tired of kind of getting the social graph every time, and they want it to be in one convenient place, subject to privacy constraints and all this. So the ideal future is that applications are easy to write, and users are happy, and the social graph kind of synchronizes all over the place, subject to the user's privacy constraints. And ideally, there's no company that's in the middle of this. So, any big company like MySpace or Facebook or Google, this should work where anybody like OpenID or whatever can run their own graph server, and everyone interoperates using open protocols, just how like email and XMPP and all this stuff work today. But unfortunately, we're not there yet. We're quite a long way away from this ideal future. So the question is, how do we get there? What can we do? Let's see where we're going here. So things we can do today. So I'm basically going to start from, don't need those, a comparison to other social systems that we do have in the world. And the first one is email. So email, pretty much from the beginning, interoperated with each other. There was only a brief period in time before networking was prevalent that that the systems didn't work together. I mean, all email addresses have this little cute @ sign that says, you know, which Brad? Is it the Brad here or the Brad there? And it was designed to work together. The only major problem with email today is that technologies like sender permitted from, or SPF, and domain keys are not very popular. So there's problems like spam. But this isn't an inherent problem with email. It's just kind of an implementation problem. The other social system is instant messaging. Instant messaging is kind of a terrible mix. There's all these different systems like AOL or ICQ or MSN or Hotmail or Yahoo's Mail and or chat, and none of these systems work together. So over time, there's been like business mergers, or AOL bought ICQ, so then AOL could talk to ICQ. Or MSN and Yahoo made a deal and, you know, like signed some contracts and gave each other a lot of money or something, and then MSN can talk to Yahoo. So then there's a lot of these systems like, there's programs like Game or Trillion or Adium on the Mac or Miranda, or now in Gmail you can talk to your friends that are on AOL. But these aren't true federation systems with Interop. It's really just kind of a hack. So you think they're working together, but really you're just logged on to each one. So kind of the hope for the future with instant messaging is stuff like Jabber or XMPP, where it's an open protocol, anyone can run their own XMPP server, and they all work together. So there's still not many people using this. I mean, Google Talk uses it, Earthlink, LiveJournal, Sapo. So all these chat systems can work together, but it's still very small compared to all the big instant messaging systems. But it's good because you don't have to do a contract with someone to use it. You just start your server up and it works with everyone. And you have these global identifiers where it's like Brad @ and it tells you which Brad and all these different things. So in summary, this is kind of where we're at today as far as email, instant messaging, and social networking. So email is pretty good. We have interop between systems. You don't really know the identity of the system that you're interoperating with because domain keys and sender permitted from are not widely available. You do have these global identifiers. You have, you know, the @ sign. You don't need these hacks to make it look like it's working because email already works. If you're on mail.ru, you can mail someone on Gmail. It just works. And there's tons of providers because email's open. Anyone can run their own. Instant messaging, they don't work together unless you're talking about XMPP, and then Jabber instant messaging does interoperate. You do have peer authentication, so you don't have as much problems with spam in instant messaging. There's no global identifiers with instant messaging. Your AOL or your ICQ is like, you know, just a number, but you can't put it on a business card. Like, on a business card, you can write, you know, here's my email address and give it to someone, and it doesn't matter what they use. But if you'd meet somebody on the street and they say, hey, I want to instant message you, you're like, I'm Brad. And they say, well, Brad on what? On AOL or on Yahoo or on MSN? And so there's nothing you can really like just tell somebody. There's hacks kind of for IAM, for Trillion and all this, but you don't need the hacks for XMPP. And there's only like a handful of providers for instant messaging, and there's even less with XMPP. Well, there's more, but they're all smaller. So in social networking, the situation is pretty much terrible. Nothing in social networking today works together. Every site, whether it's VKontakte or like LiveJournal, or all these things are islands. So how do we get there? You know, what can we do to make this all, I don't know, eventually not be so terrible? So there's not really like one solution to the problem. There's lots of little things that we can do to slowly get there. So some of the solutions. Open social. I'm not a terrible expert in open social. I know a little bit about it. But basically, it's a way to make your life easier if you're writing a social application. Because instead of writing it a whole bunch of different times, you can write it once. So you have to assume there's going to be more than one social networking site. I mean, we already have dozens and dozens, if not more, of social networking sites. And based on how many more that have been becoming popular in the US, I mean, they're going to just keep coming. So assume there's going to be a ton of social networking sites. And while a lot of the applications on the social networking sites are going to be very region specific, a lot of the applications are generic and you can use them in different contexts and different containers or websites. So it should be easy to write a social networking app and use it anywhere. So OpenSocial lets you basically just take HTML and JavaScript and languages that you already know and embed it in any site that supports OpenSocial container. So, and the good thing is there's no dependency on Google, so you never have to talk to the Google servers, or if Google goes out of business and shuts down all its machines, like your application still works on these other sites that support OpenSocial. So it's only a protocol. As far as the APIs within OpenSocial, there's basically 3 areas. There's the people area, basically says, who do you know, who are your friends, what is the social graph. There's activities, basically says, you can say, inject something into the stream and view updates about what other people are doing. And then there's this persistence, like storage layer, where you don't need your own server to run an OpenSocial app. You just, all that is stored on the server where you're embedding your app. So the one I want to talk about in particular, the one that I'm most interested in, is the people. So inside the OpenSocial.people namespace, the question is, where does the social graph come from? And this is left up to kind of the discretion of the container that you're running inside. They basically have a choice of what social graph they give you. It could be their own social graph. It could be somebody else's social graph. It could be the giant global graph that somehow you got maybe from public XFN or PhoXFN, which I'll talk about more in a bit. Or it could be some privacy protected ACL data that you got from the user that was like very private on their own machine, whatever. Or it could be a combination of all of those. But none of these are really popular yet. There's a lot of interesting discussions in the internet community about how to do this well, but it hasn't really been done yet. So this is just kind of a brief overview of some of the interesting things that have been happening lately with distributed social networking and the social graph around the web. There's this DISO or DISO project.org, which is playing and it's experimenting with lots of different technologies like XFN, HCard, which is a micro format for embedding like vCards in HTML. There's OpenID, OAuth, and they're just using a lot of things to try to. What they're doing first is taking WordPress software and adding all these technologies to WordPress. So a user is in control of their own world. They run WordPress, and that has their own social graph. And you give your social graph to every website that wants it, rather than a social graph owning it for you. So that's one experiment. There's things like Plaxo and FriendFeed and Mugshot.org. All of these are websites which aggregate information about your friends and their activities around the web. 6apart, the company I used to work for with LiveJournal, they recently released this updates.elsewhere.im service that says, basically it's an XML stream that says all the relationship changes, all your public relationship changes that happen on the web. So if you're interested in knowing the social graph everywhere on the web, you can connect to this, keep your TCP connection open, and just get a flood of information about new friends and old friends and whatever, all this. So anybody can submit new changes into this if you have an OAuth authenticated post. So that's kind of interesting. Then there's this osocial.net, which is, it's like a meta social network that's playing with multiple identities and multiple social networks and being a meta social network. And it's like DISO project, it's kind of an experiment. And they use OpenSocial, so you add an OpenSocial application to a lot of your different social networking sites, whether that's like Bebo or Orchid or all this, or anyone that supports OpenSocial right now. And it kind of builds you like a meta profile. As far as throwing sheep between domains, it's just not really possible right now. People are saying it would be nice if we could do this, but it's too complicated. And the problem is, even though XMPP is a good answer for how maybe people can do this, there's this bootstrapping problem of how do you do something really big and complex like making XMPP be the way that applications work between domains if you don't have at least 2 people doing it, and probably 2 big players and a lot of small players. So right now that effort has kind of stopped, and people are mostly just talking about it. So kind of the question is, what can we do in the meantime? So XMPP is a ways off. It's kind of hard, but we could start by just synchronizing your friends between all your different social networking sites. So you still have lots and lots of different islands, but maybe when you go between the islands, your friends from this island are still your friends from the other island. But even to do that problem, even to synchronize the data, where do you get the data from? So one easy thing you can do now is if you have your own social networking site is you could publish all the data. Because then people doing aggregations of the data can like do the synchronization, or users can do the synchronization. So how would you go about publishing it? There's different file formats like PhoF or XFN. Kind of as a quick survey, I'm kind of curious, how many people know of PhoF? Hands? Like a few? And XFN? Yeah, a couple too. So these are kind of new. PhoF has been around for a little bit longer, but it's not too popular. XFN is a little bit newer, but it's a lot simpler. PhoF is XML RDF, so it's, it's relatively complex or heavyweight, but you just copy other people's, and you don't have to understand everything about RDF. And it has a lot of things. You could say who your friends are, what your interests are. One interesting thing is for identifiers between friends, they use the SHA-1 digest of your mail to plus and then your email address. So this is kind of an interesting way to have identifiers for people that isn't a contact information. You can say I'm friends with all these people, but it's not a real email address, and you can't like decrypt it to get back, so you can't spam them. So the way this works is you, in your HTML in the head, you say this, link rel, and you say PhoF, and you have the file of your PhoF file. So this is supported by LiveJournal and Tribe and a couple other big sites. A lot of Japanese sites use this. So this is one good way to export your social graph from different sites. XFN is much simpler. If you have a social networking site and you want to say that Bob is your friend, in your link to Bob you just say rel, like relation equals friend, and that's it. That's now a machine reading that. A parser can be like, oh, Bob's your friend. So a lot more sites are supporting this slightly because it's just so much easier. There we go. So that's the way to say like your friends, but people have lots of different accounts. I use like 20 social networking sites now or something, and I would like to declare to the world, I would like to say, this is my site, but that's also my site, and that's also my site. So with XFN, you do this with a little rel equals me. So if I'm on like site1.com, I can link to site2, or I can say othersite.com, and I say rel equals me, and I'm saying, I'm declaring to the world that that is also my site. PhoF lets you do that with things like, there's like PhoFC also, and PhoF homepage, and inbox SHA-1. So there's also ways with PhoF to declare that that is also me. So then what you end up with is this kind of massive directed graph of declarations from one site to another saying, that's my account. And that's also my account over there. So you can only really follow these one-way links, though, because there could be an attacker. So yeah, this is a one-way. So you could have this attacker that says, that's also me over there. So it's really important that you only follow those links in one direction. Because then if someone's like David on LiveJournal says, hey, that's my friend, you can follow the me links all the way around. So David is not only friends with Brad on LiveJournal, but he's also friends with Brad Fitz, and he's also friends with Brad Fitz on MySpace, because he doesn't maybe know about this and he doesn't know about this, but because all these me links follow all the way through, he's really friends with them all. Likewise, Sergey being friends with BradFitz.com, maybe he doesn't know about Brad at LiveJournal, or he doesn't know about Brad Fitz at MySpace, but he follows it back way. You notice that attacker.com has no green links coming into him because it's a one direction. It's only going from here to here. There's nothing, nobody, this one or this one or this one. None of these say attacker.com is me. So we don't have to worry about attacker.com. It's one way. So another fun thing you can do with this is you can do synchronization. So people in the, I don't know, people I kind of hang out with have been talking about this a lot, is once you have all these rel equals me links and you have all these friend links and you know clusters of friends, you know like all these accounts are me and all these are my friends, you could find all the missing edges. So you can do things like maybe David is on 2 accounts and David has a MySpace and David has a LiveJournal. And he only says that this is my friend because he doesn't know I have a MySpace. But because he's actually friends with Brad Fitz, or because Brad at LiveJournal is Brad Fitz, and Brad Fitz says I'm Brad Fitz, he's really friends with Brad Fitz at MySpace. But because LiveJournal doesn't let him add a friend, what we can say is, well, we know David at LiveJournal is also David at MySpace, so we can say that this is a missing friendship that we should be friends with. So this is kind of the interesting stuff that people are talking about lately with synchronizing friends. So kind of in conclusion, there's tons of problems still. None of this stuff really works right now, and the interop between social networking sites is terrible. But there's a lot of things that kind of I'm optimistic about, that there's promise for the future. Things like, you know, all these building blocks like OpenID and OAuth, which is a way to do like delegating rights from one website to another, and things like Yadis and XRDS, which is part of like OpenID discovery and Yadis. There's OpenSocial, PhoXFN, and all these micro formats like XFN and HCard, and maybe one day we'll have applications working between sites with XMPP. But I think, I don't know, we'll get there eventually. So I'm optimistic, and the community seems very happy to work with each other to solve these problems. And I think things are getting there faster than they were a couple years ago. So I think some interesting things are going to come out of this area. So I think that's about all for me. I kind of ignored the translators, I think.